Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Buffalo Bills Breakdown. I am Sal Majorana. He is Leo Roth. I'm back from Marine.
I am, and you are. Yes.
I'm back from Marine boot camp. For those of you who are watching this tragic haircut that I have, looks like I was just in Marine boot camp for a week.
Noticed that, Sal.
Yeah, I gotta get this thing grown out a bit, Leo.
It's got more hair on your face than your head.
I walked out of the shop a little bit disgusted. But anyways, those of you listening don't have to look at it. So hey, Leo, we haven't talked for a while. We had last week off. We were off doing different assignments and weren't in the office, so we have not touched base on Buffalo Bills free agency. And it was quite a couple days last week, midweek. The Bills signed, ultimately, I guess it ended up being, if you counted Spencer Long, who was signed a little bit before the actual free agency period, 11 new guys on this roster. If you break that down, Leo, and I know you're not good at math, but we can at least give it a crack, that is almost 1/5 of a 53-man regular season roster that they retooled in literally about, 2 days and then the 1 day before with Spencer Long earlier. They've totally revamped.
10 on offense, right?
The offense especially, 10 guys on offense. Right. Well, if you count Andre Roberts, who's more of a kick returner.
And offensively, a good chunk of those guys are going to start. On right now, on paper, and now they're going to do stuff in the draft. They could still do some free agent move or two, and then come camp, some other guys could beat other guys out. But you're looking next year at an offense that's going to be completely overhauled, and I don't think anybody would really would argue with that philosophy. Their offense was just horrendous.
Leo and I were talking before we came down upstairs in our office, and you look at the signings that they made. Now, they weren't, outside of center Mitch Morse, who was, that's the guy they paid the most for. And he's going to be a guy I think that can be a real difference maker in the middle of their offensive line. But outside of him, really, these were not the big splash guys. These weren't the, Odell Beckham Jr. trade or the Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell signing with the Jets. These were kind of those typical Bills, mid-tier, under the radar type of signings.
Yeah.
But the sad part is, what we talked about, is that almost every one of these guys is probably an upgrade over what they had last year. That's how bad this offense was, really, when you look at it.
So the roster was, what you're saying, Sal, is this roster was really poor. So signing a boatload of tier 2 guys, with the exception of Morse, really, we're all, Bills fans and a lot of positive reviews nationwide, kind of shows you we get excited because it is an upgrade.
It is an upgrade. That's the sad part.
I don't mind clearly the philosophy of Brandon Beane in this case was after his little dalliance with Antonio Brown, which I give him credit for.
Right.
I'm glad he turned over
every
rock, see what was possible, whatever. Instead, after that went by, scratched an itch. Now he went for a lot of quantity and some quality.
Maybe some quality.
Maybe you can find those sleepers.
Let's look at...
Of course, sleepers can stay asleep, too.
Right. Well, we'll reel them off here. I know it's old news for you, but we really haven't shared an opinion. Now, so the biggest thing they did, Leo, and it was clearly a huge weakness, offensive line. That line last year was among the worst in the NFL. So they bring in Mitch Morse, who's a center, Ty Nsekhe, who was going to be a tackle, John Feliciano, who plays guard. Spencer Long, we already talked about. He can play guard and center. I think he might be maybe that swing guy they're looking at. And then they just signed, after that first big burst, they signed Adrian Waddle, who played for the Patriots last year, who is also probably a tackle. You could realistically at this point, Leo, you could look at an offensive line next year. If these guys turn out to be what Brandon Beane believes they can be, you're looking at Deion Dawkins as the only holdover. He'd be left tackle. You can have Spencer Long and Feliciano playing guard. I'm not sure which side they'd be on. Morse is the center, and then Nsekhe would be your right tackle with depth with Adrian Waddle. Then you've got Wyatt Teller coming back as depth, and whoever else, maybe Connor McDermott, or if they kept Russell Bodine to be the backup center. Now all of a sudden, if these guys are any good, that line doesn't look too bad anymore. They could do something with that line.
No, you're talking
if they hit on these guys.
Well, if they hit on them, and Morse is a proven steady pivot guy. He's got an injury history, but there's a reason these free agents are free agents. There's a reason their teams didn't retain them.
Well, there's two reasons. Sometimes they don't want to. Sometimes they can't. And I think in Mitch Morse's case, they couldn't.
And I will say this too, and I broke this down in a column last Friday. I mean, the nut of these free agents, of the 10, 11 guys, throw away. There's a couple 30-year-old somethings in there.
Right.
Frank Gore, obviously.
Frank Gore, we didn't talk about.
I think the Secchi's at 31.
And Secchi's 33, actually.
Okay, so you take out the 30-year-olds. The nut of those guys are about 26, 27 years old, 4 years experience because they're their first contract.
Right.
Yeah, they got these guys that potentially are ready to hit their primes and got a lot of good football ahead of them. They got them at the right time, the right price, and all those good things that not only can help you on the field, they'll help you off the field with your cap. It's really smart all the way around. Brandon Beane's a smart guy. We all know that.
I like the approach he took to this. He really clearly had a plan here.
And back to the line, I tell you, the one guy outside of the center is Feliciano. That's really an under the radar guy. Played for the Raiders. He's got a nastiness to him.
Right.
And they missed that last year when they lost incognito.
They did.
They got a little bit of an edge back, so this is good.
He also has the history with the new offensive line coach, Bobby Johnson. He was his coach in Oakland for 3 years, not last year, but the 3 previous years. So there's a little bit of familiarity there. He's the kind of guy, too, and I think Beane might have even said this. Maybe he didn't. I can't remember. But Feliciano is a guy now who can be a conduit for the rest of the offensive line because he knows Bobby Johnson. And he can maybe be the conduit to the new style of play they're going to have to do with the new coach. So offensive line is all very interesting to me. And the other thing too, Leo, is it looks like there could be combinations here. I mean, there's been talk that maybe Deion Dawkins is better off at guard. Maybe you flip, maybe LaAndre, that's a tough name, LaAndre and Waddle. Maybe he could be your tackle with Nsekhe, and you move Dawkins inside. Now,
maybe they draft a tackle
in the first round of the draft, number 9.
Left tackle, because I'm not overwhelmed with Dawkins at yours.
No, he was not good last year. So was it just a sophomore slump, and is he better than that? I don't know. He played his college ball at Temple. He was thrust into the starting lineup as a rookie because Cordy Glenn got hurt. He was okay. I mean, he wasn't bad. He was okay. But then last year, I thought his play slipped. Yeah. So maybe he's better off on the inside or at right tackle. Right. So there's a lot of different combinations they can use, and that's kind of what's cool about what happened here is they've got some room to maneuver. Now, the other guys they signed, Leo, we can run through them real quick. You mentioned Frank Gore. Look, Frank Gore is here for one reason. He's a veteran leader. He'll be 36 years old in May. He actually had a better season last year than both LaShawn McCoy and Chris Ivory. So from that standpoint,
for a Miami team.
for a bad Miami team. So you got to figure McCoy is going to be here. I don't think they're going to move on. It looks like they're going to keep him despite the cost of the $9 million salary. I think they're going to keep him for his last year. This move makes sense to me, Leo, only if they cut Chris Ivory. And they don't have to do that right now, but it makes no sense to have both Chris Ivory and Frank Gore on the team. If they were to cut Ivory, they would actually, believe it or not, Frank Gore would be a little cheaper as a salary cap hit than Chris Ivory would be. So it makes sense if they're going to get rid of Ivory. If not, I'm not sure what he's doing with Frank Gore.
Well, I like Frank Gore, by the way.
He's a great leader and all that. I get it.
You're looking at a Hall of Fame player in the locker room next year. I'm looking forward to meeting the guy. Always admired him. Chris Ivory is a very productive player. He was the best. He was probably the best running back on the team last year. Really, McCoy had a horrible year.
He had a horrible year. You're right.
And I wish they would have gotten rid of him. But you're right though. What do you need Gore and Ivory for?
You don't.
Other than having Gore as your, just this locker room sage. But it's a lot of money and moves just to have a guy for that role. I think just Brandon. I think he was just I think Beane was just a really great fan of Frank Gore.
He admitted that he's a fan of Frank Gore, but Leo, I don't want him to be a fan of Frank Gore. I mean, if he's here, I want him to be a useful member of the team on the field, not just in the locker room.
Well, they'll move Ivory out when the time's right, when they know that.
Right. And it doesn't matter when they cut. I think the post-June one and the pre-June one.
Yeah.
I think the cap hit or the dead cap hit's the same, so it wouldn't matter. All right. So then the tight end spot, Tyler Kroft. Look, they've only got one on the team before they signed Tyler Kroft, and I don't think he's going to come in here and all of a sudden be Gronk, right? I mean, I think he was a decent player. He had one good year with the Bengals. Tyler Eifert had gotten hurt, and Kroft caught 42 balls in 2017. So he proved he can do it when he got the opportunity. From what we're told, he's a decent blocker. So I think what the Bills are going to do, Leo, I mean, Jason Kroom is kind of a project that they hope will develop into something. they're going to draft someone. They may even sign another free agent too, but I think they're going to draft a guy.
There's tons of pass-catching tight ends.
And that's what they need. They need a pass catcher. If Croft can be a guy who can come in as a second tight end and be a blocker, then I think they're going to try to find a pass-catching tight end. So we'll see where Croft fits in. Now they signed the wide receiver position. That's the other big moves they made. Look, we all know that this team's wide receiving core, really for the last several years, ever since really Sammy Watkins left and Robert Woods, they have not had production from that spot. John Brown is a guy, Leo, who played for the Cardinals his first 4 years and had some nice seasons for them. Got hurt, I think, one of the years and kind of went into decline. Signed with the Ravens last year, 1-year deal, prove-it deal. And then John Brown actually admitted it too, that, look, Buffalo was in the running, but he wasn't coming to Buffalo last year with that quarterback situation. Sure. He didn't know who the quarterback was going to be. Joe Flacco was a proven guy. He went there. So now he comes up again this season, and John Brown admitted, look, I saw Josh Allen, I liked it, and the fact that the Bills chased him again was enticing for him. Yeah. They wanted him. Yeah. So he signs a 3-year deal. Great speed on the outside. Robert Foster, John Brown. Now you've got 2 guys who can take a top off a defense, and that should help the rest of the passing game, right? So that's why they brought John Brown in. And then Cole Beasley, who you love, I know. Every team needs a slot receiver like Cole Beasley. We've seen it in New England. How many years have we been watching Wes Welker, Danny Amendola, Julian Edelman, all these little gnats that get open over the middle? Yeah. This is what Cole Beasley is. I think he's going to be a huge addition for Josh Allen.
Of all the signings, Beasley's the one that I like, just for the reasons you stated, Sal, is that they haven't had that guy. They just they try all kinds of people in there. It takes a special kind of player to get off that line, to go over the middle, to find those holes, and have sure hands. And this guy does that. And I think that's a great move. I also like that he's a Buffalo kind of guy.
It seems like
came from Dallas. I think you asked him the question. This culture move is good for him. He wants this kind of atmosphere. So, I think that's the move. Brown, Foster, these guys are, again, they still, in the big scheme of things, they don't have that number one. Are those guys number ones on any other team?
I don't
Probably
think they
not.
are. No.
But they don't want, and Bean has talked about that too. Maybe they don't believe in the philosophy of a number one. They want to have, good productive guys that just catch it and aren't divas and all that other good fancy stuff. So whatever. In the whole big scheme of things, it's always been clear with Sean McDermott and Brandon Bean. They really kind of know what they want.
Right.
And they're not all over the map. Everything they move seems to be moving in something they want to build. And, you hear it a lot. Fans might roll their eyes. We might roll our eyes sometimes. What are they doing? The process, all this stuff. But they are sticking to it. And you know what? They have to, what they've done here and with this draft, it all has to hit, Sal, because this is year 3 for those guys. And year 3, as we all know, is the big year for
a lot of people,
all coaches and GMs.
A lot of people are talking about they still might draft a wide receiver at number 9. Everyone loves this DK Metcalf. I don't know. We'll see. But, Leo, you look at number 1 receiver, the definition of a true number 1 receiver. Realistically, how many teams actually have that guy? Very few. Antonio Brown is one. Odell Beckham Jr. is one. Julio Jones. Mm-hmm. A.J. Green for the Bengals is maybe in a bit of a decline, but he was that kind of guy. Not every team has that player. Now, Terrell Owens used to be that guy back in the day. Not many teams have that. So what they've done, like you said, John Brown, Zay Jones, Robert Foster, Cole Beasley, they've got a group of players that are all going to have a role, and I think that's a good combination to have. You don't need a great one.
But most teams have a defined guy they can go to. Last year's Bills team, they didn't have that guy.
Well, no, they didn't. The last couple of years they haven't had
that. That was incredible that they would go into seasons with, nobody emerging as our top guy. You don't have to call him number 1 and he's got to get all the targets and all that good stuff and he's going to complain. But my God, until Foster emerged a little and then McKenzie came, they were adding pieces every year.
I'd say McKenzie was a starter on this team.
My Lord. So anyway, on paper, the other thing is though, on paper, Sal, with these moves, they have set them up. They've set themselves up for a draft where they can really, really pick the best athlete or attack the one need they really want. Right. And that could be a defensive lineman. It could be an offensive lineman. It could be a receiver, maybe not that high now. I would love to see them get a really great tight end, a pass-catching tight end. I'm tired of blocking tight ends. I don't want to hear about it anymore.
You tired of Pete Metzler's? You're right. Number 9 pick is going to be very interesting because I don't think the Bills can go wrong. Unless they totally miss-scout somebody.
Yeah.
But I don't think they could go wrong with anything they do there because they could draft a player at either line position, tight end, receiver, and nobody would blink an eye because that's still a need that the Bills have. We talked about the 5 offensive linemen that they brought in, but as we said, none of these guys, with the exception of Morse, are truly star players that are going to be great. If they have a chance to draft a left tackle, maybe it's Jonah Williams or Jawan Taylor, if one of those guys is there and they go for it, it looks like those are guys they could plug in to play. I think Taylor actually is a right tackle, but those are guys that could probably come in right away and play. If they go D-line, they could go either side. They can go inside or outside. The Bills need help at both of those spots. We've talked about receiver. TJ Hawkinson is the tight end from Iowa. He's the one that everyone says if a tight end goes inside the top 10, he'd be the guy. Hey, if he's sitting there at 9, Leo, maybe the Bills do that. Maybe that kid, I don't know enough about the kid to even give an opinion, but maybe he's that good. All the draft gurus seem to love him. Maybe they go that way. Yeah. So number 9 is going to be fascinating. Now, the best thing they could do is trade down, though. That would still be the best thing they could do because they could get help down in the middle of the draft at really all these positions again and maybe accrue an extra second and an extra third, maybe both. That's what the Bills could really do. But I'm not sure he'll find a trade partner. That's going to be a tough that'll probably be a tough sell. So they also signed Andre Roberts. Now, I don't know if you remembered him from last year, but he was with the Jets last year.
He had a great year.
He had a great year against the Bills. If it was just the Bill, he had 298 yards in 2 games against the Bills, and he ended up with 1,100 kickoff return yards as an All-Pro at that position. The Jets, and he was funny. He was actually good at the press conference. He came right out and said one of the reasons he signed with the Bills is he gets 2 cracks at the Jets now. He said he was miffed that after the season he had, that they just let him go. So he wants to go back in there and do some damage. So that's an upgrade to the kick return game. And we all, we talk about how that's kind of been de-emphasized. But hey, when the ball's in play, especially in the Northeast late in the year, the ball's going to be in play. You got to have a return guy.
Yeah, maybe it's all down play, but you still need those guys.
You still need that guy.
Still need kickers, return men, punters.
He returned 40 kicks last year, so that's you do the average. That's 2.5 a game. So he is a player that should be able to help them. And then the other guy was Kevin Johnson, the only defensive player that they signed, a cornerback. Leo, this is a former first-round pick in 2015 for Houston who had a lot of injury problems. He was hurt quite a bit, but when he played pretty well. And he's got first-round talent. So if he can get over the injury crisis, I think he gives Levi Wallace, that's a great competition now, and whoever loses is still going to be getting a lot of playing time. So I like that move, too, on the surface.
It's another good signing. It's a flyer. It doesn't cost them much. Take a chance on the guy. But I'm not, fine, throw him into that heap here. But and a lot of these guys, and I know nationally the Bills got some high reviews, I think, for in totality because of the prices they paid and the needs they filled.
Right.
But everybody needs to take a step back and say, hey, what did they really get? Examine the guys closer. A lot of them got injury issues. A lot of them got performance issues. A lot of them got, there's a reason, as I go back to Sal, there's a reason they were out there. Maybe in Morse's case it was money, but for a lot of these other cases, they had to go shopping, and the Bills were right there, had done their homework on them, and they found a great landing spot, and they liked what they saw in Buffalo. And so hopefully, for the Bills' sake, a lot of these things will pan out, but we've seen what free agency can be. I will leave us with this, is that you should be able to hit on these. You should be able to evaluate free agents a lot better than you evaluate college players.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you have 4 years a minimum of 4 years of a body of work to judge these guys on. So.
All right, couple questions here, or actually some comments. Seth Steinhauer doesn't really like the Cole Beasley signing. He says he is rated as a below-average receiver 3 of the last 4 years. 75% of his routes are within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, and he points out Josh Allen was the least accurate quarterback on those short throws. Well,
yeah, well, of course he's a slot guy. Of course they're going to be near the line.
That, and, yeah, okay, Allen had a tough time with that, but you know what? Nobody was ever open for Josh Allen like Cole Beasley, I think, can be. So I think his accuracy will improve with a guy like Cole Beasley. That's kind of the reason they're bringing him in. So that's why I think it's a key signing for Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Pete D.M. Wortmus, that's a tough one because he's got all kinds of stuff going on here. He says, yeah, I want a stud tight end, and they said that also makes Zay Jones work harder too. Zay Jones will have to fight for playing time. I mean, he will. If they get a pass-catching tight end, and then you've got Foster, Brown, Cole Beasley, Zay Jones' opportunities could become limited. And he was the leading receiver on this team.
Like the reader says, yeah, it'll elevate him and make him work harder. I mean, Zay actually, compared to he had an okay year last year. I mean, not everyone didn't have a great year, but
he had 56 catches.
But he started to show a little bit more consistency in his game, and they still have high hopes for him.
Yeah. Seth Steinauer has a bunch here, and he is either not a Bills fan or is not happy with anything they did. He also says the only reason John Brown came to Buffalo is no one else would offer him a multi-year deal. I don't know where he's getting his information, but unless he's his agent, I kind of find that hard to believe. He also says based on PFF grades, the Bills offense after free agency only has one above average player. Does that matter? I don't know. I don't know if they're. I think Mitch Morse is above average. I think John Brown is.
Well,
I think Cole Beasley is.
I forget who it was. I know Morse was one, and maybe Brown was one. But of the top 101 free agents on NFL.com, I know the Bills only got 2 of them. So
okay, well, Dan Walker says get rid of Shady. I totally agree with that.
Yes. What are you waiting for?
Kyle Nuss says the Bills really dodged a bullet with Antonio Brown, and I would have to agree with that. Look, that guy is the ultimate diva. If you gave me a choice of Antonio Brown and Odell Beckham Jr., who are both world-class divas, Leo, I think I would take Odell Beckham Jr. over Brown.
Yeah.
I really, Brown is just, the way he acted in the month leading up to this.
But I wrote
deplorable.
about this too when that morning that all that news broke, and I was just saying, a lot of things get interpreted, and I know he did. I mean, I watched he did almost an hour-long thing with ESPN. I watched most of it, actually. That wasn't an hour long, but, you had to watch the whole thing to grasp the whole thing. I know in this world of social media, a lot of things you just get snippets, and they throw them out and this and that, and I'm not here to defend Antonio Brown. He probably acted very unprofessionally, and he, the way he forced that trade and the way he,
Dissed Buffalo.
Yeah,
in a way.
Yeah, well, he did because, and again, nobody even knows how that came down, but Brandon Beane sure was miffed about the perception that nobody wanted to come to Buffalo.
Yeah.
And he had a great, and I love Brandon Beane for that. The Carolina guy is Buffalo through and through right now, and he really defended the city, and it was great to hear that out of your GM. I don't know, Sal. I had that thing happen and Antonio Brown was here, believe me, there'd be a buzz in the air.
Oh, there sure
And it's
would.
all about entertainment, and it's all about sports, and all this. Everyone's got this opinion about how NFL locker rooms are full of choir boys, and it's just not true.
No, I know.
I think, and believe me, if he gets his money, he's here and he's happy. If he would have showed up, the big thing was, I just think it would have been, I just think you got a premier stud guy, one of the top guy receiver in the NFL, and I just think it would have been great. So
this is what I'll say about that. I've watched all these highlights that they were showing of Antonio Brown throughout this whole process, right? You know what I noticed, Leo? He's a great player, but Ben Roethlisberger is a hell of a quarterback too. Because some of those throws were absolutely spectacular. Yeah. And yeah, Brown made great plays too. But I'm thinking to myself, you know what? Josh Allen ain't throwing that ball. Yeah. So how much of a difference? I mean, Antonio Brown's a great player. Don't get me wrong. But he's got Ben Roethlisberger making those pinpoint throws. Josh Allen is not known for pinpoint throws. So I don't know that Antonio Brown does the same thing.
I got to tell
Buffalo.
You,
and then he'd get frustrated, and he'd probably be a pain.
Between Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown and how the things fell apart in that Steelers locker room, I just so on Steelers-like.
Yeah.
And what's with these guys? And I don't want to contradict myself here, but I don't know these guys. I don't know Bell and Brown as much as we've never met them. I don't cover them, whatever. I only know what I read as well and talk to other guys. But you got to wonder, I mean, yes, wouldn't you want to be to this historic franchise, a winning franchise, you got a winning coach and a winning quarterback. So, but yet, boy, do they want out.
They want it out.
They want it out badly.
I mean, the Steelers have a culture there too, and their salary structure is very rigid from what I understand. I mean, they don't go outside of the box too often, and these guys both went out to the margins of the box, and they decided not to bring them back. So it'll be interesting because I think your Browns, I think the Browns are the favorite in that division. I think they're going to surpass the Steelers. The Ravens are Lamar Jackson, and the Bengals are going to stink. So the Browns may finally rise with all the things that they've done. It's going to be very interesting in that division. All right, you want to close out real quick with Syracuse, since there's this college basketball tournament going on that I don't have a whole lot of interest in.
Sal doesn't like March Madness.
I know I'm in the vast majority here, but it just doesn't really intrigue me that much. I'll watch Syracuse. I will watch UB because they're in it too. But I don't know. College basketball is just not really my thing. Anyways, SU plays tonight, 10 o'clock against Baylor. And
you'll be asleep.
I'll be asleep by 10:30 probably. And watching college basketball puts me asleep, period. But it's also past my bedtime. Frank Howard, what the heck? I saw a report.
Really disappointing.
It looks like the Daily Orange got the scoop that he failed at a drug test. I'm not quite sure what the drug test showed, but that's what I saw on Twitter just before we came down here. So they don't have their point guard, which is not a good thing. But if you follow me at all, Leo, on Twitter, you know that I really don't have much love for Frank Howard. I've never liked him as a player. I think he's had so many games where he's made so many critical mistakes. I don't know. I'm sure it'll affect him. I don't know it's going to be a killing loss tonight for them without Frank Howard. I really don't.
No, yeah, and being without Tyus Battle was
that was more
down
important.
The stretch with those last two games was probably more important to the Orange. Frank Howard's disappointing. He's a senior, been there a long time, and you want more out of that, and you have to have more than that. And I'm sure he let his school down, he let himself down. It's sad to see. I'm sure I'm glad that SU's and they're by the book. Believe me, now after some of their recent history, they're by the book. They're not going to play him. It's over. It's done, and then. Where does Syracuse go from here? It's a little more playing time for Buddy Boeheim.
Yeah.
And they need a shooter. They need shooting. They need to make shots to go very far. Now, this is the time of year, of course, that Syracuse surprises people.
Yeah. They made the very good point. I forget who said it. One of the players said it. He goes, "We're not playing these games anymore. North Carolina, Virginia, Duke. Those are three of the 4 or 5 best teams in the country."
Yeah, let's give
So these teams, Baylor's not North Carolina or Duke tonight. Neither is really. If they win this game and Gonzaga wins, Gonzaga's the number 1 seed in that region.
And I'm gonna tell you, I like Gonzaga and that whole story, but they're not Duke and Virginia and North Carolina either. And
so these are the kind of games that when they get to the tournament, Syracuse, when you haven't played that zone like all the ACC teams. See it all the time, they usually find a way to win this first weekend. Now they get to the Sweet 16. I don't have any faith that they'll move on from there, but it's not out of the possibility that they could survive the weekend.
They could win these 2 and be in there, and it'll be another nice story and the whole bit.
Yeah.
Now, and that's the point. I was just over in we'll talk about UB real quick, University of Buffalo, and they're obviously they're out of Cinderella anymore because. Getting to the NCAA now under Nate Oates, what Bobby Hurley began, this is what they do.
Right.
So, and I was over there on Tuesday, watched the whole practice. They really work this team, and they're fun, and they play a whole different style than Syracuse. It's hard-nosed, man-to-man, up and down the court.
Right.
And I'm telling you what, the way they practiced the other day, it was crazy. Because I've seen a lot of Syracuse practices, and the tempo that they went at, it's not even close.
Yeah.
Now, everyone says, hey, UB, and they are good, and they are legit, and I could see them doing some stuff too. I could see them being a Sweet 16 team as well. The MAC is not the ACC.
That's right.
I'm going to tell you, the ACC getting 3 number 1 seeds, what more do you have to talk about? Yeah. And this is what Syracuse faces all year in their schedule. And down the stretch, it looks like, wow, boy, they're horrible, but you know what? They're playing the best, and obviously the committee rewarded that all along. There was no doubt in my mind that they were going to be an NCAA team, and the net ranking showed that out right through the selection Sunday. So, but it's fun. I mean, I hope they go. This is the time of year. I mean, come on, Sal, it's March Madness. What's the matter with you?
It just drives me mad, that's all. Look, I'll watch some of the games, but I just don't have much interest in it anymore. I'm sorry, I just don't. All right, so we'll wrap it up from here. Bills free agency, like we said, is still going on. They got a lot of room. $35 million, I think, still available. If
What's
you
the next
wanted to
big
use
thing for
it.
the Bills? They got
The
any
next big thing now, Bean's already on the road. He said last week that he left Sunday and they're on the road
draft.
for
They're going to be
really 3 weeks. They're on the
April.
road. So they're doing pro days. They're doing private workouts with kids. They have the owners' meetings they have to go to in between there. And then I guess he said they come back around April 5th to the stadium, and that's when they hunker down for the rest of the time leading to the draft. So they still could sign a player or two, a lower tier guy, but really it's full bore on the draft from here on out. So it's getting interesting, and we've all said this is a big, big offseason for the Bills. They've already made a great footprint in free agency, or at least a sizable one, and now we'll see what they do with 10 picks in the draft in late April. All right, Leo, you done?
Yeah, enough on the Bills.
Have you talked enough today?
Yes.
Too much Bills in March?
Yeah.
There's never too much Bills. There never is for this group. All right, folks, we will see you, I believe, next week right here at Democrat and Chronicle. For Leo, I'm Sal. Have a great weekend and enjoy your March Madness.